happy Tuesday from the 104.5 The Zone Studios. I'm Lucas Panzica. The NFL news of the day, the Chicago Bears have fired offensive coordinator Shane Waldron after a 19-3 loss to the Patriots. The Bears have lost 3 straight games. They have scored a total of 27 points in those 3. Passing game coordinator Thomas Brown will take over play calling duties in Chicago. Titans will be back on the practice field tomorrow as they get ready to return home and host the Minnesota Vikings on Sunday. College football playoff rankings come out tonight with the reveal beginning at 7:30 on ESPN. Tennessee was ranked 7th on the first CFP rankings last week. The Vols beat Mississippi State 33-14 on Saturday. There will be shakeup from the top 5 as both Georgia and Miami took losses over the college football weekend. For all your foundation repairs and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Lions here on 104.5 The Zone, powered by All Four Seasons Garage Doors, 615-737-1045 if you want to get in on the conversation. And Blaine, we're just going to jump right into it. The sacks are an issue for the Tennessee Titans. And listen, they've been an issue for like the last 3 years. So I'm not surprised that it's still an issue, but really what I thought was interesting, what's been kind of the discussion this week is who is to blame. And lately,
who's to blame?
Yeah, who's to blame? And lately, it's really been in the last few years, probably dating back to maybe like 2016, 2018. More and more data shows that it becomes more and more of a quarterback stat. Not necessarily that this absolves blame of the offensive line on every sack, but there's a distinct correlation between how sacks stack up compared to, you know, for these quarterbacks and what maybe is when you're looking at it, like a correlation from college into the pros, like how many times did their pressures turn into sacks in college at a rate, and what is that rate in the NFL? So it'll be really interesting to see how that actually works. But in your thoughts, how much of a blame is it for the quarterback?
Well, I think it's, it's individual, cases naturally in a game. Just like let's just use Levis from last week. You can blame him for maybe 2, maybe even 3 of those sacks. And I think it should be a part of their, stat. I don't know how you equate that to their performance or how you grade them, because they do, when they get sacked, that's like going against the negative yardage, like for a run, correct? Yeah. So, because I saw one where it was J.C. Latham's guy, and he did a really good job on his guy, and, naturally, Levis moved up, and then his guy, he can't, just like you always say, he doesn't have eyes in the back of his head, so he was standing there like, hey, man, when are you going to start rushing? And then he just took off. I think it might have been Bud Dupree or whoever it was, and got a sack. So, yeah, some of it definitely is on the quarterback. So I think this is a really, really good stat now that they should start keeping track of instead of it affecting offensive linemen's grade, because that's not how it's getting graded in the meeting room either.
No, it's interesting because I think PFF probably does the best job of actually putting the blame of the sack. Now, maybe they get the wrong offensive lineman from time to time, right, and sometimes maybe a coverage sack isn't really a coverage sack and it's really a quarterback sack. But I think for the most part, they do a good thing. That's why I kind of look at pressures to sack percentage. And the reason being is, like, think of it this way. Let's go back to 2019 with Marcus and Ryan Tannehill. When Marcus was in the game, 34.7% pressures to sack. When for his full game, full year in the 20, or that all those plays in 2019, all the plays in 2019 for Ryan Tannehill, once he took over, that dropped almost 6 points, or that dropped a full 6.1 points, 28.6% of the time. And that's the same team. Now, if you want to say, well, maybe the offensive line got better, maybe there's a little bit of that. But if you start looking at these teams that have made mid-quarterback switches, sometimes they're not always better. Sometimes they get worse, but it's different styles of quarterback. That kind of shows you the effect the quarterback has on sacks. Like, look at the Steelers. Steelers with Justin Fields, he's got the legs, right? He can kind of bail himself out of a few sacks and all that kind of stuff. 20.5% pressure to sack. Well, when they put in Russell Wilson, who's maybe not as mobile, he's going to probably be taken down a little bit more because he's not as mobile, not as athletic. Maybe he's just a little bit smarter, too, knows when to take a sack and when not to. 23.6. So not a big margin, but that kind of shows you the difference in quarterbacks and what they affect. Because the big thing for Will Levis has been this year, 31%. Mason Rudolph, 11.5%. Same offensive line. Same scheme, little tweaks here and there. Of course, you got to tweak your offense to the quarterback that's playing and then tweak your offense to the defense that you're playing. But at the end of the day, that's a really big discrepancy. And that's not to say that Will Levis sucks or anything like that. This is just to point out when you're playing the blame game on sacks, I think fans tend to go too heavy on the offensive line.
Yeah. It's funny. I'm glad you brought this up because you just reminded me. I really don't like the comparison when everyone does this with Mason Rudolph in his games he started in comparison to Will Levis. And you're talking about the defenses they played. Well, all those defenses were different in their own way. So, it's not a fair comparison. Now, it is statistically looking at the broad picture.
Yeah.
What you're doing is to say, okay, his style of play is definitely different than Mason Rudolph because of his talent. Most of the times, sometimes it can hurt you, sometimes it can help you. That's why I like my quarterback to be a throwing quarterback that can also be mobile. Because what happens is the quarterbacks that are mobile rely more on their mobility instead of being a polished quarterback in the pocket. And those things can hurt you in the end. Just look at the history of the National Football League of how many running quarterbacks have won a Super Bowl and how many who were pocket passers and won the Super Bowl. Now, that trend can continually change as more and more running quarterbacks are now in the National Football League.
Right.
But that hasn't changed very much at this point as far as winning Super Bowls. And I don't put Mahomes as a running quarterback. So I think playing quarterback once you get into the NFL is so much different and harder, and your responsibilities are a little bit different than college. Also, there's a leadership component that is missing from college to pro. Now, from college, a lot of times now, maybe not as much this last year, but before, everybody's looking to the sideline. From O-line, running back, quarterback, you're not really huddling. So now you're in front of grown men, some of them, with beards and gray hair, and you're up there in a huddle now, and then you're kind of baffling out the play or fumbling out the play, maybe that you get late and they get late, and then now you're running up to the line. So I think there's a whole nother maturation process for quarterbacks, not only with that, but also now I'm doing pass protections. I got to look at different coverages right when I line up my pre-snap read, my after-snap read, when I'm backpedaling read. It changed. Do I trust my receiver that he's going to be at the spot it needs to be? It's changed from what I saw in the beginning, same thing he saw, till now. So I think, to me, I wish we could test. This is the only test I want for my quarterback. It's not about his arm strength. It's how quickly can he process information in live game action. And that probably could be somewhat like this video type.
Yeah, virtual
version,
reality.
Right, that it'll test you. You're not actually even throwing the ball. I want to see how quickly you can process and then react and make the right reaction and the right throw. So those are the things that are probably more important to me, and his accuracy on mid to short range passes, because how often are you throwing a deep ball? Maybe 4 times a game.
Right.
So that we love the long ball, but at the same time, how often are we throwing it?
Look at it this way. So Brian Callahan was on the OTP yesterday, Blaine, and he said that 90% of quarterback play is boring. And 10%, you have to turn it up. He said 80% of basically the skills that you need to play quarterback are mundane. Like, you got to practice the mundane, and their emphasis has been on the mundane with Will Levis because you have to have that ability to do the easy the boring throws. And that's really whatever. Everybody's like, well, why aren't they just going crazy with the deep ball? Well, the defenses are ready for it. The defenses now are playing two high safeties at a higher rate than ever before. They're trying to take away the deep ball. They'd rather try to be able to stop you. They want you to throw the deep ball in most cases.
Well, I can say Will Levis is kind of in this last game.
Yeah,
I wanted to see him throw a couple of them, and I thought he waited, and then I felt like he was starting to show. I don't want to make a mistake.
Yeah, there were a couple opportunities that he left on the field where he could have made the deep throw, but that's the balancing act of a quarterback.
Yes,
and that's where I think the struggle really lies. Is that there is he's finding that balance. He's finding that balance between 90% and 10%, or if you want to do the 80-20. He's trying to find that balance of being a quarterback and being the quarterback that needs to be a hero. And I think finding that balance has been a little difficult for him. I thought he showed progress in that regard because there were a couple of tight window throws. There were a couple of the deep shots that he made that were very impressive. But again, what have we always preached on this show? Got to do it again. You got to do it again. We got to see it again. And we got to see you take a little bit of steps every so often. So it'll be interesting to see because Minnesota's coming to town and the data, the film has me scared for this Tennessee Titans offense. But we're going to continue the sack discussion because there's some other things I want to talk through with you about and the processing. And then I also want to go to the phones as well. And we'll do that when we come back, and we'll keep talking through all this. We'll talk about the offensive line and all that. This has been Covered 2 with Blaine Bishop and Zach Lyons here on 104.5 The Zone.
You know, I've been talking about Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance for years because they're the leading experts in sports medicine and performance and the team physician for the NFL, college, high school athletics across Tennessee. And TOA provides sports medicine coverage to more high school and college sports teams than any orthopedic group in the state of Tennessee. They have 29 locations throughout the state and over 100 physicians throughout Middle and East Tennessee to take care of all your musculoskeletal needs. And TOA has 11 urgent care locations with walk-in availability 7 days a week. And they offer direct access to sports medicine and performance, physical therapy, and nutrition. Personalized rehabilitation plans to enhance mobility, reduce pain, and improve overall physical function for patients recovering from injuries or surgeries. And TOA also offers sports performance training, a specialized program designed to enhance athletic performance and provide tailored training solutions for athletes at all levels. So please check out service at TOA.com. That's right, TOA.com.
I love living in Middle Tennessee. We've got great restaurants, entertainment, sports, and one of the nation's top Ford dealers right here in our backyard. Two Rivers Ford. Remember that name. Two Rivers has been a staple in our community since 1983. They're locally owned. They have a non-commissioned sales team, and they sell below MSRP. They've been doing business with integrity for decades. Two Rivers Ford, the South's most trusted Ford dealer.
Hey, it's Zach Lyons here of 104.5 The Zone, and as the resident sports analytics nerd, I know data, and the numbers tell me that the dual power of radio and digital on 104.5 has always delivered for local advertisers. Now's your chance to book your 2025 marketing campaign early with special savings and incentives. Reach out today to your local ad representative or go to 1045thezone.com/epic. Cover 2 with Blaine Bishop and Zach Lyons here on 104.5 The Zone, powered by All Four Seasons Garage Door. Join 3HL as they broadcast live from Twin Peaks in Madison this Wednesday from 3 p.m. to 6 p.m. Stop by and enjoy food, drink specials, and more. For more info, visit 1045thezone.com/events. And Blaine, we're going to go straight to the phones, and it's part of the discussion that we're talking about with SACS analytics and all that kind of stuff. So we're going to go to RJ in Phoenix, who wants to talk about analytics and SACS. RJ, you're on with Blaine and Zach.
What's going on, fellas, man? Thanks for what you guys do.
Oh, no problem. Thank you.
So man, my wife's birthday was yesterday. So we was doing birthday stuff all weekend. I did not watch the game, right? So I looked at the stats after the game, and of course I heard all the shows and everything. Everybody's talking about we lost because of this, we lost because of that. But I wanted to call this show specifically because, Zach, you the numbers guy.
All right.
So if I'm looking at the numbers, just off the top, I saw we gave up 7 sacks. We didn't get a sack, right?
Right.
That's never going to be good.
No.
What stands out to me, we gave up a 56-yard kick return. Right, this is with me. I didn't see a snap of the game. I'm just looking at the stats that I wrote down. Right, we ran the ball 16 times, and we missed a field goal. Now we lost by 10. A field goal makes it a 1-possession game, and maybe you coach different when you need 1 score than 2 scores. But I'm looking at the stats, Levis had a good game. He threw 2 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. He got sacked 7 times. I didn't watch it. I don't know if he held the ball too long. I don't know if the offensive line was terrible. That's why I'm calling to ask you guys. But looking at the stats, man, Levis did his thing. The defense gave up way too much. And the special teams is still terrible. So you tell me, why didn't we lose the game?
Yeah, RJ, I mean, sorry if I just hung up on you and you were going to continue. But RJ, I do agree. So here's where I'm at on, let's take it one at a time, sacks. What's interesting about this is kind of the one time the media, when it comes to sack Blaine, is kind of pretty much all right around the same spot. Some people say 3 sacks are attributed to Will Levis. Some say 4.5. I landed around the 4 mark for Will Levis, with a couple of those being sharing the blame. And so, like, everybody's around 3 to 4. And that, to me, lets you know that, okay, we know that at least 3 are for sure on Will Levis. Let's do a little margin of error there, that the 4 is not the correct one, but the 3 is more than likely correct. The coach even said that at least 2 the day of the game, said 2 was on Will Levis. I think maybe there's a little bit more, because then he was like, he's not really going to play. He doesn't like playing the blame game on sacks. So that means that kind of lets me know that maybe a little bit more was on Will Levis after he watched film. Okay. The interesting thing to the special teams point was that the fact that Julius Wood goes down there, he trips over someone or his own feet or gets pushed, and he falls to the ground. He takes out one of his players. Then 2 LA players are taken down with each of them. And then you see 2 other players for the Titans are kind of having to adjust their pursuit angle because there was a big 4-car pile up. Right. And then there you go. There's your, and this team has such a thin margin of error in their coverage unit anyway. Their punt coverage unit was really good. And so there is sign of improvements. The defense, 0 sacks and giving up 7 sacks, no matter whose fault it is just untenable. It's hard to win a game like that. It's almost like turnover margin at that point.
Yeah. That's why I always laugh when we look at the stat numbers for where they're ranked.
Yeah.
Because there is no one that you fear as far as pass rusher. If Arden Keaton having a good day and Landry, which means, they're putting pressure on the quarterback and getting sacks, and they're really good players, but they're not elite players, and that teams have to game plan for. So it reminds me of when right before we had Javon Curse. We had a really good D-line, but he took us to a whole nother level. We need that player. We don't have that guy right now. And then that makes everything else so much easier. And just imagine now, I don't know if it's their number 1 in pass defense because their rush isn't doing so well, but man, just think how much better it would be, and let alone if we had the healthy 2 starting free agents that they signed. So defensively, they're just a solid team. We got to see a good defense in the Chargers there and what that really looks like. So I would say that about that. As far as the sacks with Levis, I would say I thought I was more at the 2.5 mark, closer to 3, but because one of them, I feel like he doesn't process the information. When he doesn't know where he's going to go and that 1 or 2nd read isn't there, he needs to say, okay, either I'm running or I'm throwing to my outlet.
Yeah.
Wherever that's at. He has to know that before he even steps backpedaling or gets the ball on a snap. Where is his outlet? And you should be able to throw that outlet pass, whether it's across the middle or to your right or to your left, with your eyes freaking closed. That's how easy it should be.
And you could see that he did it on some plays, but there were plays that he had maybe no pressure. I kind of thought when I went through and watched every one of his dropbacks on the all-20 team, I'm like, there's the progress, right? But we're not seeing the progress that I think that separates a starting level quarterback to an above average starting level quarterback is that ability to do it even when you have pressure coming.
Yes.
And that is, and listen, baby steps, I guess, at this point. And I guess we have to adjust our week to week expectations for Will Levis. They're not like, because I think everybody started off week 1 with the expectation, well, we saw what he was last year. That's who that should be the ground floor this year. And maybe that's the right expectation to have for Will Levis. New system, brand new offensive line, new pieces. I think maybe
think that.
I think some people did, and I don't really think that was the wrong way to view it.
I did.
But I mean, I think we have been a little bit more. I feel like our analysis week to week has been a little bit more fluid and setting the expectations properly, because we had a big long discussion about it last week about what to expect if he starts and everything like that. You know, I look at Will Levis, and I think sometimes he doesn't take off to run and he still takes a sack, but technically that sack's on Dylan Radins for letting the guy in there. But again, everybody in the NFL kind of has this data point of 2.5 seconds. Not sure I agree of how long you should be able to hold up a block. And I'm not sure I necessarily agree with that, but I do think that if you get to a certain point as a quarterback, we talked about yesterday, the alarm bell should be going off. The signal should be going off. And I think with Will Levis, sometimes on that issue. And sometimes, listen, like we said, not every sack is on the quarterback. Not every sack is on Will Levis. There are times where these guys just let guys manhandle them. And I just want to bring it back real quick, because I do have an interesting question about J.C. Latham. And it's not maybe just J.C. Latham. I've seen a couple of other players do it, but that remind me to ask you that later. So I want to go back to a study done by Jason Lisk in 2018 in a piece for The Big Lead, a sports website. And this is the conclusion that he did on sacks and the role that quarterbacks play on. Which brings us to sack rate. It is one of the most consistent things when a quarterback changes teams. It is one of the least consistent things when a team changes quarterbacks. So like I illustrated earlier, talking about the difference between Marcus and Tannehill or Fields and Wilson. Same team, different quarterbacks, and it's very inconsistent in how much it's varied from quarterback to quarterback. Again, and this tells me that the quarterback plays a larger role than people think in determining a team's sack rate. Now, this was 2018. I think this is a little bit more commonplace now in 2024, people thinking that, but I just want to throw that out there. Again, I don't know what exact percentage is attributable to the quarterbacks versus the line, and I certainly don't think the line is irrelevant in determining a quarterback taking hits. I just think we measure line play by the wrong stat if we focus solely on sack rate. Sack rate does seem to have a lot to do with the quarterback's style, decision-making, and willingness or unwillingness to gamble with a throw before they're ready. A quarterback with a tendency to take fewer sacks is going to get rid of the ball. It's his yards per attempt and completion percentage that are going to reflect whether the line did a good job. Was he throwing the ball when he wanted to or before he wanted to? And that's the ultimate conclusion. So
on time, right?
On time. And I think that is also the other thing with Mason Rudolph. He was allowing the offense to run on time. Levis did a better job at that this last week. I think he was horrible at that. I mean, just rotten at being able to operate the offense on time. Now, you got to sit on the sidelines, learn some things, saw some things, got to talk to Trevor Siemian on the sidelines during the game and all this kind of stuff.
But did the coaches also help with that process with Mason Rudolph as they got better, and that means the head coach, of getting the plays in there, just how the whole structure of the offense was working. And it seemed as, because Will Levis wasn't out there, was it more of a collaborative effort from all people involved, and now they got that kind of down?
And I think that's what they kind of described, right? All last week, all we heard was we don't expect a considerable drop-off once we put Will Levis in, because everybody got better. And to be honest, the only real thing that you saw a considerable drop-off in, and it's a big thing, is the sacks.
Right. Well, that's where I think your opponent matters.
Yes, I agree. I do agree. So I think that's an important asterisk for this particular conversation.
Yeah, not to say that he should have gave up, 7 sacks now, but if it was 5 or something, I don't know if we would even be having a conversation. But it was happenstance that he came back and they got sacked. So. Obviously, you can kind of go through that with a fine-tooth comb and say, okay, who was at fault here? Sometimes it's protection scheme. Sometimes they turn the protection the wrong way. Somebody's coming free. Somebody just gets beat individually. Sometimes a quarterback is drifting. Sometimes a quarterback does have pocket of awareness and then moves into the sack instead of just run. Just run. So I think those are probably the issues more so of everything that we've seen about Levis, and I thought he played adequate, was his pocket awareness. And I don't know if he will ever be able to get over that.
Oh,
that's coming out here to me. There's just visually of all these things. He can kind of get better at some things during the season, but this one here is going to be interesting because I think it's just a habit that I don't know if he can break it within this short window of time that they're going to give him an opportunity to see if he can be a franchise quarterback.
Well, and I also think of this, and this is kind of another question that I also want to dive a little bit deeper in than what maybe time allows, is that the reps. The game slowing down with more reps. To be honest, his reps were inconsistent last year. He had about eight full games of reps.
He started 6, right?
He started 8. He played 9, but started 8. If I'm not mistaken, because he didn't finish that Texans game. Right. And now we only have 3.5 and 5.5 this time. So he's really only had like 13.5 games, to be honest with you, because the Miami game, he only played some. So it's real interesting to see, and he's not getting reps consistently. Some of that is because he got injured. He got injured last year. He got injured this year. So that's also something that you got to factor in with this evaluation, is whether he's dependable enough to be relied on to play the majority of a 17-game season. That's a big question mark, especially after you suffered through Jake Locker and Marcus. You suffered through these guys that can't play, that either get two injuries too severe to play or won't play through injuries either, and the injuries just pile up. Like, at some point, that has to factor in your evaluation of whether you keep Levis. But you talk about habits, and that's something that we've talked about Will Levis. The same stuff you're seeing in college, you're seeing now. It's hard to coach out the habits. And now we know that they're focusing on the habit, establishing good habits. He just hasn't really hit it on the ground going 100 miles an hour yet. I think we saw some of the good habits rear their head this past Sunday that we haven't really seen in other games, including games last year. So we'll see. We'll see how that all works out. But going back to pressure to sack ratio, that the stats I was talking about in the first segment, Will Levis throughout his college career, includes his snaps at Penn State at quarterback and Kentucky, 25.3% of his pressures turn into sack. So far in his pro career, 24.9% of his pressures turn into sack. I'll take it one step further. Let's go to a guy like, who was I talking about earlier? Okay, a guy like Baker Mayfield. 20.3% in college. In the pros, we're looking at, and I just freaking lost it, 21.7 in the pros. So not a big difference. You go to a guy like Joe Burrow, 22.2 in college, 22.7 in the NFL. And this is I did them pulled up for everybody except for like the old heads that are in the league. I got them for everybody.
Okay, well, before you go on, how do you view from college talent, that you're going against, quarterbacks, their little defenses, to the pros? Because if it's somewhat the same as far as the percentage, you could honestly say that's improvement. Do you disagree with that statement? No,
I don't disagree, but it's also the rate of your pressures turning into dropbacks regardless. You get what I'm saying? So, like, it seems like if you're a magnet for sacks, you're a magnet for sacks. You get what I'm saying?
Regardless. Doesn't matter who you play.
And I think that ultimately, like Ben Roethlisberger, Mike Herndon was on Buck Rising show, and Mike Herndon was talking about Ben Roethlisberger. And Ben Roethlisberger was a sack for magnets in college.
To the ball.
And he was a sack for magnets the first 6 seasons.
Mac action, Miami of Ohio.
You're right. And he was a sack for magnets in the pros for the first 6 years. And then he changed his playing style, changed his habit, changed all this stuff, and progressed. That can happen.
Let's wait.
Yeah.
Let's time out right there. What did you say?
He progressed. And he changed his habits and style. So it took 6 years, You don't have the differences in his 6 years.
I'm going to cut that in half and go to 3 and say, okay, in this day and age, how patient are you going to be?
Right.
Granted, it's a different era of time, but they gave him 6 years. So obviously they saw something in him. And because it was a big thing in the NFL, he would hold on to the ball because he was so big and he would get hit. And it was like they were falling off of him. It didn't matter.
He was a big boy.
Right. So you had to hit him with a lot of funk in your trunk there, man. But so I just want to talk about patience.
Yeah.
I don't know if Will Levis ever can get over all these little things that can make you a really good starting, consistent quarterback in the National Football League. I sure hope he can, but how patient will we be? Do we just give him this season?
Yeah.
And that's it, even if he starts showing you a glimpse of, because what you're also thinking about is the quarterback, where are you getting him from? If it's from the draft, that haven't had a lot of success with the organization that way, or are you getting him in the middle of the road, some stopgap quarterback, which they've had much more success at? I'm going to go Tannehill, Kerry Collins. We can go down the list. Hasselback. Are you going to go down that road and then maybe still even draft a quarterback and then patiently involve them in whatever you're doing over a couple years' time? So I don't know which way is best. But you also have to look at history and don't let history scar you based off who's coming out, though. You got to say, what are the likelihood of these guys being successful?
Okay, so I'm gonna leave you with something, and then we're gonna go to Tommy in Murfreesboro. And I want you to think about this while we're talking to Tommy. I think, and see what you think about this. I think the chances of Will Levis being a bridge quarterback for 2025 is much, much larger than Will Levis being a franchise quarterback beyond 2025. I'm going to get your thoughts on that.
I'm with you on that, though. I'm with you on that.
Okay, we're going to go to Tommy in Murfreesboro who wants to talk about Will Levis, because everybody does. Tommy, you're on with Blaine and Zach.
Thanks, Zach. I think Levis progressed some on Sunday, but the one play that you had talked about yesterday that just is something that a freshman in college should be able to make this read was in the second half on first down where he sprinted out and took the sack when his number one receiver was wide open down the field. And he not only didn't see the receiver for some reason, then he comes back and he takes a 5-yard penalty for delay of game right after that. So that's not something that he should be making as a second year or third year pro in NFL. That's something that he should be able to do when he's a freshman in college. And just those silly mistakes to me are just what really is intriguing by whether or not he's going to be able to be successful or not. And I was wanting to know if you can tell me how many college starts that Will had, because Mr. Irrelevant out in San Francisco, you know how many college starts he had? It's like in the 40s.
Right, yeah.
And so I don't know if that has something to do with it or not, but I'm sure it probably does. So I'll hang up and listen. Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the college starts matter. There's varying degrees of how much they do matter and everything for the quarterbacks and everything. The Will Levis, if you'll just give me a second to find it.
He started 20-some games?
Yeah, Will, because he never started for
Penn State, did he?
For Penn State.
He played in some games where they had him running. I have a Penn State alum.
It was like 20-something games. It was below. It was below the margin of what you typically want to see from a quarterback.
You went over it. Yeah.
I think it was Daniel Jeremiah and them. They wanted 29.5.
Oh.
And really, to be honest with you, Bill Parcells wants you to be a 3-year starter, start 30 games, and win 23 of those games. Like to win 23 games as a starter. So Will Levis didn't hit any of those, marks. So it's just, to me, Yeah, I think that all plays into it.
Yeah, what did you think about on the Wiley play? Because I know we've talked about it. Is that the play we were talking about?
I think that's the play I was talking about. I'm not entirely sure. That's the only play I really talked about. I didn't really say anything about Calvin Ridley yesterday. So
that was a deeper pass on Wiley, correct?
Yeah. And NWI was right in front of Wiley doing the same thing about 7 or 8 yards, and they were both kind of open. So he had two options.
I felt like he should have hit NWI. Only reason why I say that, when you start scrambling around, things are moving a lot faster.
Yes.
And I think that's what Will Levis is saying. A guy is open when you initially release it. So the deeper you throw the ball down, the faster the guys are going to react. And so that guy, you got to see when he gets hit, that guy is standing right next to Wiley at that time, by the way, and the ball wouldn't have got there at the time. So a lot of times we could say, oh, this guy's open. Well, when you start scrambling around, he can't see all the pieces to the puzzle of the players who are moving in, who are closing in on these guys. So I think that was a safer play, but I would have gone to NWI there.
I would have too.
And then the delay of game was, I thought it was more from the sideline.
It's more the center, from what I understand.
He should have snapped it.
Yeah.
He got to know too. But,
Right.
I mean, they shouldn't have got out there on the line that late.
So when we come back, we'll talk more about Will Levis, the offensive line, a couple of other details I want to clean up. We'll also have Coach Mack in hour number 2 for his usual weekly Mack Attack, brought to you by Two Rivers Ford, South's most trusted Ford dealer. I'm Zach. He's Blaine. This is Cover 2 on 104.5 The Zone.
Hello, I'm Ashley Northington, Chair of Moving Forward of Middle Tennessee. The upcoming transit referendum is a game changer for our economy, business leaders, and the entire community. A robust transit system is essential for a thriving economy. With 54 miles of high-capacity transit corridors and 86 miles of new sidewalks, this plan enhances Nashville's connectivity, making it easier for everyone to get where they need to go. This isn't just about transportation. It's about economic empowerment. For business leaders, reliable transit means a more productive workforce. Shorter commutes boost productivity and job satisfaction, helping businesses attract and retain top talent. Improved transit also drives sales and supports local economies by making it easier for customers to reach businesses. The benefits extend to the entire community, connecting people to essential services, education, and recreation. This creates a more inclusive city where everyone can access the resources they need to thrive. Supporting the Choose How You Move transit referendum is an investment in our future. This is about creating a city where businesses can flourish, residents can thrive, and the community enjoys a higher quality of life. Join me in backing this transformative opportunity. Let's build a Nashville where everyone has the opportunity to succeed and to prosper. Visit the link in the caption to learn more about the referendum, how it will support our community, and how you can get involved. Thank you.
Cover 2 with Blaine Bishop and Zach Lyons here on 104.5 The Zone, powered by All Four Seasons Garage Door. 615-737-1045 if you want to get in on the conversation. And Blaine, there's something that I thought that I was just picking up on, and then my dad called me the other day and asked me about it. And listen, this has nothing to do with J.C. Latham, the person, nothing to do with J.C. Latham, the player. He's been excellent. I'm not just looking to nitpick, but just something that I've kind of noticed on film. And I'm just kind of wondering if you've noticed it. There are times when he gets beat and then he just stands there.
He stops.
Okay, so you do see it.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm just making sure.
I don't miss it.
I've seen it, and I'm like, well, he's playing so well, and I don't want to be like the guy that's trying to be a sourpuss or anything on a player that's playing well. But I've also seen other players do it as well on this offensive line. But I've seen J.C. Latham do it a lot. And it was funny that my dad's picked up on it this week, but because I picked up on it since week 1, but I just haven't said anything.
Right, because he's playing solid.
Because he's playing solid. But is that normal? I mean, I guess I've never really noticed it. I've seen some players do it, but like, I mean, what do you think about that? Like, I guess what should be the fans' takeaway for those fans that maybe have seen those plays?
Man, I probably if I was coaching him. Because obviously, when you get beat by by a defensive lineman, you're turning, looking like yelling, "Watch out!" You know? So, what are you supposed to do? You never know, because I would always trail him and say, "Okay, my quarterback may see him coming, and then that way I can ear him for beat me so bad here on a comeback." So I wouldn't just stand there and watch it. And he's done it a few times. Not even when he's gotten beaten, this guy hadn't sacked the quarterback. So you just kind of say, "Hey, let's hustle." Obviously, if he's doing it this much, even at this point in time, and he's doing pretty good as far as attack, I don't think they're probably saying too much of anything to him.
Yeah,
because he is not the only guy doing that too. Right. By the way,
it was just very weird. I was just very surprised that even maybe someone that wasn't necessarily looking at those plays that way, like your average fan, it picked up on it.
Yeah. Well, I'm all built on who I am as a former player.
Yeah.
On hustle.
Right.
And when you turn on the tape, that's what you want to see as far as a player. You can control everything else. Sometimes you can't even control if you're going to get beat or you make a bad play. But that doesn't say anything about me except what did I do when I responded to that, even in that moment on that actual play when I got beat. Hey, did I turn around and chase the guy and he made me miss? I get up and try to tackle him again, or did I just lay there?
Right.
So that's the part that I want to see some. Oh man, you beat me, I'm gonna get you.
Yeah,
and he may be that way the next play.
and maybe so, but I just was like, man,
It's because he's such a massive guy.
He is. Maybe you notice it more.
You just like, whoa, hey,
there's that.
I told you that dancing bear, that dancing bear, not dance. He was just standing there looking at you like, hey man.
But and to be honest, I don't want to pile on JC or. People think that we think J.C. Latham's bad, but J.C. Latham is a future Pro Bowler, All-Pro kind of left tackle in my mind right now.
Leader of the team. He's going to be a captain. He's that guy.
One of the things you can point to with this team, in a sense that they got that draft pick right, they assessed the talent right, they put him in right away, and it worked. Like that's one of those things where you can do that and be able to say they are at least. Now, Bill Callahan has a good track record of doing it with first-round picks.
Yeah.
So that is a good thing. But that's what you also want, right? Like, there's times where you could get a first-round pick and they're not developing. Speaking of, Peter Skoronski keeps looking better each and every week and starts putting it together each and every week. I don't know, Blaine, if he'll ever live up to the 11th overall draft pick status. I don't know if he'll ever be a Pro Bowl or an All-Pro player. But when you're looking at right now in the NFL and with the Tennessee Titans, you got to take wins wherever you can get them. And if Peter Skoronski develops to a slightly above average starter, which he has been these last few weeks, starting to get in this rotation, starting to get the feel for it, you got to count that as a win. And with the asterisks of
before this
11th overall pick.
Yeah, I know. Expectations, of course.
Yeah.
All right, between him and Radens, take out this last game. Who's playing better?
I would say better consistently has been Radens. And he does have a few years under his belt.
Well, they were injury prone.
But they were injury prone.
and moved around.
And Skoronski is not living up to he's going to be like Corey Davis. I think he's a player that's never going to live up to the draft status. And ultimately that's not fine, but it is fine. As long as he's
if
not
he would have went
trash.
in the middle, like 18, it would have been okay.
Yeah, really. And then we're just kind of getting to semantics, right? Like if you would have got him where
Corey
you
Davis.
drafted Isaiah Wilson, you'd be doing cartwheels over having Peter Skoronski develop into a starting guard. The problem is that 11th overall pick, and that's the name tag or the badge he has to wear around his neck. You know, like that's going to go around with him wherever he goes, and that is a part of the evaluation. But that's really a part of the talent evaluation and the evaluation of that than it is the player. It's not the player's fault that he got picked at 11th. It's not Corey Davis's fault that he got picked at 5th. It's the general manager. So that is part of or whoever is in charge of, whoever had final say in the draft room in Peter Skoronski's case. And listen, I get it. Everybody, if you're going to draft a guy, you want an all-pro, but that's not, Skoronski wasn't the guy, and he had high aspirations. The draft community thought he was the best offensive lineman in the class by far. They thought that he would easily be an all-pro. And listen, there's still time for him to develop. It just may not be at the pace that you expected for 11th overall pick. So there is time for him to turn into an all-pro. I'm just going to say that I think we're talking about Corey Davis, an offensive lineman version of Corey Davis, which is an average starter, which in the NFL you need on the offensive line.
Yeah, but man, going that high, I'm tired of hearing the slow development. We're doing that right now with the quarterback, to be honest. We're slow playing that. And so I just,
But is that the player's fault or because of the draft status the GM's fault?
Well, we got to know the acumen of the player, first of all. How much, effort is he putting in to be a great player? I would assume he is, just looking at his backdrop of who he is. So that he's putting in the work, and now he's probably getting different style of coaching. People don't, take into account. These are things that are very important to me. Change of coach to player, even in the pros, is very difficult because you may be hearing one way before, and then now all of a sudden this coach comes in and says it a different way and then does it a different way. So you have to adjust. They all bring in different things to the table. You got to find something positive what they're doing, especially when you're a young player, and how you can continue to develop. But you also have to do things on your own.
Right.
And I'm sorry, you did just nowhere around. I don't care what position you're talking about. And you were talking about this earlier, and I have to say this. You said every position. I'm saying every position must master the boring. You were talking about quarterback and Will Levis. I think every position is like that.
Yeah.
And if you don't master the things that are boring, that are routine, and focus on those things, and when I say that as a defensive back, first of all, is getting your eyes, keys, and reads of where you're supposed to put them every single play based off the formation. If you're outside at corner, getting your 3-step drop read, slow pedal, read steps, and then get into your pedal, then your eyes back to the receiver. It's just that natural. It has to happen over and over and over again where you master it, from press, from off, to in between and zone coverages. You must master them. People, I mastered them.
Well, that's going to go right into our next topic. The topic I really want to get into is about reps, processing, speed of the game, all that kind of stuff. We're going to talk about that when we come back from break. This is Cover 2 with Blaine Bishop and Zach Lyons here on 104.5 The Zone.
Hey, Tennessee, fall is here and in full swing, and Cool Ray's here to make sure your home is ready for all the fun and the fall season. And we've got some sizzling deals that will keep you comfortable and worry-free all season long. So ensure your family stays hydrated and healthy with free water quality testing, because nothing beats a refreshing drink of pure water on a nice fall day. And Cool Ray also offers a $149 main sewer line camera inspection. And right now, they also offer 15% off whole home dehumidifiers, as well as $500 off whole home generators. So let Cool Ray take care of your home so you can focus on making memories. So call us today at 615-709-8699. That's 709-8699, and take advantage of these scorching hot deals. Cool Ray, your trusted partner for a cool and comfortable Tennessee fall. And all you have to do is just visit coolray.com.
Hour number 2 of Cover 2 with Blaine Bishop and Zach Lyons here on 104.5 The Zone. Next segment, we'll be joined by Coach Mack for his weekly Mack Attack to talk all things Tennessee Titans, about the Vikings, about what he saw in the Chargers, all that kind of stuff. And Blaine, before we went to break this last time, we were talking about the importance of every position during the Monday. And the big talk that has been around these last 24, 48 hours has really been centered around Will Levis's processing speed. And NFL defenses now force you to have to process things faster. And you have to be able to recognize certain things. And I've heard you a few times talk about the speed of the game. And how you as a player, it took you a little bit to adjust to the speed of the game.
Absolutely.
And now, obviously, being injured, missing out on game time, missing out on reps. I mean, I'm not saying that this will fix Will Levis, but I'm just talking generally. Is reps is really the most clear path to figuring out if you can adjust to the speed of the game?
Ooh, and his processing, I would say that's it. That's the final test.
Yeah.
And the test is every time you go into the game, if you can pass your test for every position. And you're talking about every position as the boring and, really master the boring parts of your position. Well, quarterback's the hardest naturally. So if he can master the test or get a 80 or above every game, regardless if you throw a pick, it's pick six, what have you, but you're mastering the game. And I think that's where it's going to be interesting because that's the only thing you can do when you get in an actual game. What he learned standing on the sideline, yes, it probably helped him out a lot. But ultimately, you have to get out there and do it. I don't know how hard it is at quarterback to get comfortable with the speed of the game. It took me 4 games, and I couldn't even tell you why it slowed down. But what I could tell you is it did slow down because it started feeling like I was back in college again. Now, I can say this as a safety.
Yeah.
Guys will run by me, and I couldn't even that first game, I couldn't even, and mind you, it's week 10. They run right by me. I couldn't even told you the numbers. I could not.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, each game, it took about 4 where I felt, I'm about to wreck shop. I'm about to do some things now because I felt comfortable again back to like I was in college. And I don't know what that was. I'm going to always call it, and I'm not smart enough. You are a lot smarter than me as far as eye discipline and eye control. And my eyes started slowing the game down, and I don't know why I did. Now, sometimes it was because I knew where to look, and I started learning where I should be looking. But that still didn't. That shouldn't have changed like how fast things were going. And they were still going fast.
Right.
So ultimately, I think it's some form of when your eyes are out there, can you continue to develop them with the speed of the game? And I say that in all respect to guys that went to Notre Dame, Alabama, UT. Some guys that their athletic prowess is off the charts, they don't have it, and they'll never have it. And it's really weird. You get to see that happen, and you go, oh, man, I can't wait to see what year 3 looks like with this guy. He still looked the same as year 1.
Right.
You're going, why didn't it happen for him? And I don't know that answer. If not, I'd have a lot of money right now in the test that they do for players. So, I would say a quarterback, it probably takes at least half of that. So I would say 8 games. So in the new system, to me, his game started this season to me. I think chemistry and understanding what the real whole picture of an offense really is with new pieces to the puzzle. That's why, as much as I love D-Hop, I thought extracting him now clarified everything for the pieces. And he had a crutch that Levis would lean into sometimes that he shouldn't, based off of the play that's called each and every game. And so I think he's going to be forced to now go through his progression reads and go through the hot hand. He's going to have to decipher when and who is going to be crutches on certain plays. That's what quarterbacks do. And then the pre-snap, post-snap reads, I think when he gets strict, he gets rattled and holds onto the ball and doesn't want to make a mistake. And just instead of letting it wing. So he's got to find ways to, what's innate in him, let it fly sometimes. He's got to find those spots and pick them at the perfect times or the right times to do that. Not just when it's clarified as man-to-man. It's really man-to-man if it's cover 3 and your guy's running down there and he's running man-to-man with the guy. He's deep third. That's still man-to-man. You got to find your ways to throw even during those times. So I think he's working through all of these different processes. just not at the rate we want. But I saw progress, and I want to believe that he can continue to get better. But ultimately, is he going to be Will Levis, who he really is in critical situations? And that's the difference between a good starter and an elite starter. They could have a bad day, but that last 2 or 3 drives, you go, now, give me the rock, and I'm about to show you. And I just don't see that yet in him, and I don't know if he ever will have that.
And
that
that's
will be
really the growth that we're really looking for, right? Because I think for the most part, the growth that we saw on Sunday was that safe growth, right?
Yes.
Like the growth of, and I do agree, it's maybe not all the way mundane or anything, but we saw growth and progress in certain areas. It's when things are going bad around you. Because previous Levis, even when things were good around him, he was bad. Now we saw, okay, when things are good around you, or the play is going exactly like you think it's going and it's supposed to go, you're able to execute it and able to execute it quickly, because his time to throw has been the best it's ever been on those throws that he was actually able to get out of his hands. He was almost a full 1.5 seconds slower on sacks because things didn't go his way. And when things don't go his way, that's when the issues come to rise. And listen, everybody time to throw goes up on sacks. There's not a quarterback that does. The difference is, again, how many sacks actually happen. And that is the difference. And when you have a bad offensive line, and this offensive line is not as bad as what it was at the beginning of the year. But when you do have a below average offensive line, and specifically a below average position at right tackle, your brain has to compensate for that. The way that you think and process the speed of the game, you have to
pocket awareness.
You have to change all that, and it has to be a step above than what it was when everything's going right. And right now, what I think you're seeing is that I think you're seeing the same processing speed when everything goes right and when everything is bad, and that's just not going to cut it. You have to get faster when everything is bad.
Yes, I would concur with that there. And that's where I talk about, where is your desperation outlet?
Yeah.
You got to know that when the ball is snapped and understand that. And then that way, and especially with his arm talent, he could just flick the wrist and the ball will go out to the flat.
As long as he's not getting tackled while he's flicking it.
No. I mean, not a flip, but a flick of the wrist. This is a legal pass, right?
Yeah.
I'm still perturbed about that. I can't wait to ask Coach Mack about that. But, so it's a lot, but at the same time, I think he's equipped. I just don't know if he can do it on a consistent basis.
We've seen players all the time put in the work and never be able to do it.
Man,
that's just the life of the NFL, right? I mean, there's just the NFL. The NFL is meant to be really tough. You have to be, especially for quarterback right now, you have to be in that top 10%.
But here's why I hesitate always.
Okay.
I always hesitate because when dudes are hard workers, somehow, some way, if he's a competitor, he'll find a way in his own little way to make it happen. Now, how much can you keep yourself from diverting back to that will be the tough task.
Because you even see Baker Mayfield and
that's a good example.
Sam Darnold is another one. Geno Smith. All these guys that people are like, are too afraid to let Will Levis leave. And they're like, oh, man, we can't let him leave because he'll turn into this guy. Well, Sam Darnold just had a 3-interception game. Baker Mayfield still is prone to having Baker Mayfield games.
Yeah.
Geno Smith is, I think most of Seattle's kind of out on Geno Smith. I think the Geno Smith train was great for a short time, and it's already gone. And that is, sometimes you can be and perform, but like you say, it's all about consistency.
Well, two of those quarterbacks had coaching changes.
Yeah.
But Baker Mayfield and Geno Smith said that matters.
And so, to me, it's like the consistency is so hard to keep in the NFL because it's meant to have parity. And that's like, do you think you can win a Super Bowl with a Geno Smith, a Baker Mayfield, or a Sam Darnold? Or in today's NFL, do you have to have one of those special guys? And right now, it kind of seems like you have to have one of those special guys. Jared Goff may be able to prove you wrong this year, but that kind of seems like you have to have one of those special guys.
I think the question is misguided and misleading. Do you think you can win? No, that's not the question. The question is, do you think that they bring hope that you can win to the fan base? Because guess what? There's only one winner every year. we can name the quarterbacks. Has anybody got those quarterbacks? No, nobody has a Mahomes. Nobody has these so the idea and the premise of that you're going to get this Super Bowl winning quarterback is it's really an imagination. It's like, does he bring hope that we can win a Super Bowl with him?
I like it. We'll start using that phrase on this show. When we come back, we'll be joined by Coach Mack of Titans Radio. We'll do our weekly Mack Attack with him. This is Cover 2 with Blaine Bishop and Zach Lyons here on 104.5 The Zone.
For many of you who have lived here a long time, you already know Eurofix has been in the Middle Tennessee area for your European car repair needs now for 24 years. We've all gotten to watch them grow. And I don't know about you, but I love watching a hometown business take off. Well, we're now proud to announce the 5th location in Mount Juliet for Eurofix on Mount Juliet Road, right across the street from Dairy Queen. And Eurofix can serve you in Franklin, Hundred Oaks, Murfreesboro, Belmead, and now Mount Juliet. Pretty cool getting to watch a small-town mechanic start in the barn of his backyard of his single-wide trailer and now grow to 5 locations repairing thousands of cars each month. And at Eurofix, you get a 3-year nationwide warranty and a free loaner car with every repair appointment. And all you have to do is just give them a call at 844-EUROFIX. That's right, 844-EUROFIX. Or you can just visit them online at myEurofix.com. That's myEurofix.com. But always tell them Blaine said ya.
You know what that music means. It means it's time for the weekly Mac Attack with Coach Mack of Titans Radio. You can also ask him your questions right after 3HL, right here on 104.5 The Zone in his Mac Talk segment on the radio. And then, of course, you have Titans Radio. Every Sunday you can listen to him play or cover the game with Mike Keith and all that kind of stuff. And he's brought to you by Two Rivers Ford, South's most trusted Ford dealer. And, Mac, I just want to jump right in. You know, which aspects of the game did you see Will Levis make progress in compared to the first part of the season?
Well, he did. Hey, Zach, he didn't turn the ball over. I mean, that's a big plus. And you know, he seemed to operate the offense at times fairly efficiently. Mm-hmm. The issues that he still had, I think he held on to the ball too long on a couple occasions. They put themselves into bad situations on third down, especially later on in the ball game when they went 3rd and 10 plus because of penalties that they got on first and second down. And then, you know, he's holding on to the ball too long in those instances with those 3rd and 10 pluses, because trying to make a long play downfield, sometimes you just either got to try to check it down or just throw the thing away rather than taking a sack, whether you end up losing more yards and giving up more, you know, field position metrics. That's where I thought it was. I thought he did a better job of running judiciously with the football and getting down. But at the same time, you know, you've got to be able to sustain all of this, and not all of it's on the quarterback, the penalties. But look, they had 7 sacks, and they had 5 penalties, which is 12 negative plays. You know, taken, especially in that second half. That's way too many against the defense or any good team like that to be able to sustain anything in the second half.
You know, I thought it was interesting on his appearance on OTP. Brian Callen was talking about just putting the ball in the fairway and taking those easy shots and just giving either your playmakers a chance to make a play, or at least putting yourself in a more advantageous situation to maybe where you do challenge and go forward on 4th down, or maybe you put yourself back in the field goal range. And Will Levis did show some progress, but the young quarterback does have areas of improvement. And one of those deal with processing at the speed the NFL defenses are forcing you. And something I've been talking about with Blaine is like, obviously, is it just getting up to speed and adjusting to the speed of the game? Are there actual drills or processes beyond just film study that a staff can implement to help with that? Or is that really just more of a got to have the reps kind of deal?
You got to have the reps. You can't simulate that in practice. You can't assimilate the speed that it works at, and you also can't assimilate what other defenses are going to do to you in real game life situations where they are trying to to defeat you all of the time. And so that's something that you have to process and you have to learn with time on task. But you need to pick that up quickly because, and I agree with what he's saying. There were a couple occasions where he had some shallow crossers, where to where he had some transcontinentals, as I call them, coming from one side of the formation to the other, when a deeper route might have been unfolding downfield, and rather than waiting for that deeper route to unfold, you need to take those. But that's something that all the quarterbacks have to learn, and they all learn it at different paces. But the quicker they learn it, the more efficiently you can run your offense.
We're on with Coach Mack of Coach Mack of Titans Radio, brought to you by Two Rivers Ford, South's most trusted Ford dealer.
Well, Coach, I have to ask you because, Boy Wonder over there, Zach, was telling me how on air you were a little upset about the not calls fumble by Simmons. Kind of take us through how much you would have got fined if you were on the sidelines in this game about the fumble.
Well, to be completely transparent, as I was always been for the 8 years that I've been on this airwaves, I've been fined before when I was coaching, for saying some other things. But right. the issue is that at the moment, and the thing that it upset me and it upset all of our listeners and upset the people watching is I know the mechanics of what goes on down there, and I was watching the head coach with the replay with the official that came over and told him it's going to stand as called. Mm-hmm. And as he started to move away, all of a sudden it's a flip and says New York has changed it. Okay, now that to me, there's a flaw in the system, and it's not just for the Titans; it's for everybody else. I mean, guys, every week that I am on here, and it's not because we're trying to pick on officials. I mean, I was up there in a booth with Gary Cavaletto, who's a longtime official, who's an observer now, for the league. And I was, I was talking to him about it, and this is throughout. This is throughout the league this year. I think you guys would agree with me. It's just so uneven the way that things are happening right now. Mm-hmm. You've got no idea of consistency of what's going on. That's a huge play in the game, but not to say that you didn't have enough time to overcome that call. And I'm not saying that at all. But yeah,
that was a huge momentum swing type play there. That was.
Sure it was. And you've got to do everything you can to overcome those. But if you're asking me, and I will tell you honestly, like I always do everything, it smoked me up a lot.
Yeah. Well, Coach, clarify for everybody, especially me, the actual rule. Explain it to me if you can. Like I didn't, like he had his arm was, he just flicked his wrist from a side angle. That's not, to me, releasing the ball over your shoulder. I think they need to get more clarity on the actual rule. Literally, I understand what they're saying, but to me, he has to have the ball up in a throwing motion. His arm was half down. He got hit. He hadn't even got up to about to throw. I don't understand it. Explain it.
Bingo. I can't explain that either.
Neither can the refs.
No, they can't, Zach. Look, it would have been a throwing motion if he was pitching underhand softball. That would have been a throwing motion.
Exactly.
And I'm telling you that those kind of decisions, as I said, I've been fined before for asking an official. If I say, you make another couple of these calls, you can come help me pack my office up. They didn't like that either.
Well, Coach, you've been one of the few people that I know that I could ask this. What were you saying to your team at halftime after this play? And then, were we up? But no, we're down by 3.
Yeah.
So what is your conversation with the team to get them back out? Because they still came out, to me, a little flat. And then that's when they, especially defensively, they ran on that 90. Well, that was third quarter. Man, that was a
95-yard drive.
Yeah, that was the backbreaker there. But, man, what kind of speeches can you say that you've given that really got guys maybe just focused, not just riled up, because sometimes you get riled up and then do horrific things, but just really focus and honing in on the things that you need to do to win this game?
Yeah, well, the first thing you do is you address it. Hey, look, guys, I'm pissed. You're pissed.
Right.
Get past it and go out there and play. I mean, there's nothing you can do about that. You did everything you could to make that thing go in our direction. It was taken away from you. Go out there and retake it. That's all I could say.
One more thing, though. I have to ask you. I hadn't asked Zach yet, but did you even watch Joe Alt? Did you get to see what he looked like? Did he look okay? I didn't hear his name, so I don't know. I wanted to watch him, and then I kept going somewhere else when I'm watching people. So did he?
I didn't specifically watch him in this game. I watched him and leading to the game when I'm doing my work, preparing during the week.
Right. Okay.
And
what'd you see?
Yeah. He and J.C. Latham were the two best tackles in the draft, hands down. That's it. He's doing. He's everything he thought he would be. It's interesting that he was a left tackle, now he's a right tackle. JC's a right tackle, left tackle, and they're both doing really well. So you know what that tells you? Those are the two best tackles coming out of the draft.
No doubt about it. Well, with Coach Mack giving us the Mack attack.
Outside of the 2 wins, this team has really struggled to play complementary football. Either all 3 phases fell in a couple of games or 2 phases fell in most of these losses. When you have a large sample size like that this far into the season, how hard is it to right the ship to get everybody playing complementary football? Because we've seen that they were able to do that against the Patriots, but we have not been able to see it consistently.
Well, first of all, each unit's got to take care of their own problems. That's number one. And then the thing that has to happen is in moments, you hear me talk about moments in games all of the time. At those moments, whatever part of the team needs to step up at the time, needs to step up, and usually you feed off of one another. you feed off of one another when that goes on. My experience has been, in the 30-plus years that I coached in this league, is that sometimes if one party's stepping up and the other one is constantly lagging behind, then the one that's lagging behind tends to start dragging the other one down because they're having to carry a whole big load of the burden. And so you're right. You need at least 2 out of the 3 playing well, but the one that is not playing well cannot make disastrous mistakes. Disastrous mistakes are what get you beat quicker than anything, regardless of the phase that you're playing. But the whole key to that is each group has to take care of themselves on a consistent basis throughout the ball game. That's what has to happen first. So complementary football really comes into being when people are complementing each other's play as far as being able to take advantage of the good things that the other side is doing on a consistent basis.
Leroy Watson at the right tackle spot, he's kind of struggled with false starts, and that's been kind of a unfortunate signature move of his, are these penalties that he is getting. And I was actually a little surprised after the 2 back-to-back penalties that followed up a penalty from earlier in the game. We actually saw more or kept seeing Leroy Watson go in. So when you have a player like that, Coach Mack, how do you, throughout the week, fix these penalty issues? Because Blaine even pointed out that sometimes he then overcompensated the other way and was late getting off the snap because he was too afraid to get the false start. So, how do you get a guy like that? And he hasn't had a lot of reps at right tackle. He's a converted from tight end. But you need to fix that quickly, especially with Minnesota coming in this weekend.
Well, he needs to fix that.
Gotcha.
I mean, he's a professional player. He's got to fix it. And so, and Blaine's right. Look, if you go in and you're doing something egregious like that, and a snap count should not be that egregious. All right, those are unforced errors that are completely on the player. But then if you let that make you timid as far as being able to refocus on the next play, then that's your issue. And I go with this. Coaching can take care of a lot of things, and coaching has to be accounted for a lot of things. But at the same time, a professional player, especially in that instance, you're the one that got to strap it back up and go to work and not let that bleed over into the play after play after play. And you're very kind when you said had a little problem with it. But that's a big problem,
yeah.
And he's got to fix it if he wants to play anymore.
What did you think of the job that Daniel Brunskill did in the center? I thought Peter Skoronski did a good job. Personally, I thought Daniel Brunskill did a good job. Dylan Radins was obviously adjusting, but specifically Daniel Brunskill coming in for Lloyd Cushenberry. No real big bad center quarterback exchanges, and he was really getting down the field, getting after it, and putting some guys in the dirt.
Yeah, and you know what? And I didn't even and I hate the fact that we don't have Lloyd Cushenberry anymore. I hate that. But the thing that I like is I didn't even notice that Cushenberry wasn't in there because I thought Brunskill did a really good job in there. I agree with you.
Besides getting 0 sacks and very little pressure, which is a big issue for this defense, what were some of the other issues that maybe popped up on the defensive side of the ball, specifically with Kenneth Murray and maybe the coverage?
Well, that thing on Kenneth Murray, that touchdown wasn't on him. That was a zone pressure that they didn't get pressure with the zone pressure, and the quarterback had way too long to throw it. That route that came over there transcontinental, that wasn't even in his radar zone. That was a flaw in the back end, and it was a flaw in no pressure. Number one to begin with. I've coached linebackers enough with these zone pressures when you're dropping out of there to know that if you don't get home with the zone pressure, there are holes in it, especially in the back end. That's number one. Now, the issue this defense had this ball game that was a real problem was the run defense. There's been 2 games where the run defense has really not been up to standard, in my opinion. And again, I'm just watching the games, doing the games. The Green Bay game, the run game has too many issues, and this game, the run game had too many issues, especially in the second half when really Harbaugh just started to play hardball bully ball, and they won the bully ball part of it.
We're on with Coach Mack, brought to you by Two Rivers Ford, South's most trusted Ford dealer.
Well, Coach, I guess I want you to break down. I want everybody to hear this. What were the reasons why the Tennessee Titans lost to the Chargers?
Well, they gave up 7 sacks to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
You had way too many negative plays, and when you have double-digit negative plays, and I count negative plays as sacks, and it also self-inflicted wounds, and they could not stop the run when they had to, because that was the key to the ball game. Got to be able to stop the run. Herbert and those receivers, they're gonna, we go into the ball game, thinking McConkey was going to be the problem. He wasn't. He wasn't the problem. But when you can't stop the run and a team that wants to bully ball, you got to be able to screw your cleats in the ground and stop that. And plus, did not play good red zone defense. And when they had a chance, especially in the low red zone, to make them kick at field goals, they allowed touchdowns.
All right, Roman, real quick, do you have any answers for if someone said the NFL has a refereeing problem? What would you say to that? And how can they fix it?
Well, wow. How could they fix it? Look.
Well, I think instant replays really hurt referees. I mean, man, I'd be like, I'm not making a call. I'm gonna go back and look at what happened.
Well, we don't have enough. We've got a 2-hour show here. We need about 200 hours for that, and that's bothered everybody. But I think it starts from the top, goes all the way down. And I think they fast tracked officials in this league. I think it's not only a problem with the NFL. The NFL are a result of the issues that they have. I mean, why are they playing so many high school games now on Thursday nights and Wednesday nights? They don't have enough officials. The feeder system is not good. They're fast-tracking people too fast into it. And then, I agree with you, the indecisiveness now, and also the inconsistency from Mike Keith goes through this every week. He studies the officials, what they call, and the disparity between what they call and the number of penalties that are called, per unit, per officiating squads is increasingly disparate. There's a big issue with officiating in this league because of the inconsistency. The fix to it, they've got plenty of money. If they want to pay me, I'll go up there and talk to them a lot about it.
I love it. These red zone defensive issues, we haven't. It's been a while since we've seen teams be able to score pretty much almost every time they get into the red zone. It's one of the worst red zone defenses in the NFL. What are you seeing that contributes to that? Is that just eye discipline, or what is that?
Well, the biggest part's eye discipline if you're throwing it. I mean, that's a huge part down there. Everything's condensed. Everything is condensed, and that's a big problem. I mean, eye discipline, always in the red zone, always in the red zone. Blaine and I could talk for hours about a red zone defense we used to play here called Desert, which was very intricate, but it worked against everything. But you had to everybody had to be looking at correctly and reacting correctly to the same thing. But eye discipline is huge. Now, they took a big hit on their percentage in the Detroit game where you had the massive field position metrics go against them, and they were unable to make them kick field goals at all down there. So that's gonna take your percentage way up. But that part of there, the thing that has to happen when they get in the low red zone, somebody has to make a big play on defense to put him back and get them out of that situation rather than let them stay on schedule. Once they get in from the +6 to the goal line, somebody's got to make a play early rather than always having your heels on the cliff through a 4-down segment, especially in the low red zone.
Well, that was Coach Mack. You can listen to him right after 3HL for his Mac Talk tonight. Then you also have every Sunday you can hear him on Titans Radio as well. Mac, it's always a pleasure, and you were brought to us by Two Rivers Ford, South's most trusted Ford dealer. But thank you so much for joining us.
Appreciate it, Coach.
Guys, it's always my pleasure. Appreciate it, Blaine. If you can get them to pay me, I'll go talk to New York about the officiating.
Let's start a committee. Us three, we head up to New York, and we head up officiating for the NFL.
I think we should just go up there to the officials and explain them the red zone defense of 10 Desert.
There you go. I love it.
See you guys.
See ya. That will do it for Coach Mack. And when we come back, we'll have our final segment of the show, Cover 2 with Blaine Bishop, Zach Lyons here on 104.5 The Zone.
Hey, Tennessee, the holidays are almost here, and Kool-Aid's here to make sure your home is ready for all the festivities. So check out the winter water heater sale that's for $500 for a tankless or $200 tanked plus a yearly free membership. And free water quality testing is always available. And you can also try a 2-for-1, $49 tune-up and a furnace safety inspection. As well as Kool-Aid is also offering 5 years, 0% interest, and no money down on any new HVAC system. No other deal like that in the state. And this holiday season, Kool-Aid is introducing the Ultimate Power Upgrade Bundle where you can transform your home with new outlet and switches just in time for the holidays and the gatherings, of course. So try $500 off of panel upgrades or meter service, or maybe even $1,500 off whole home generators. So we're your partner in comfort no matter the season. So let Kool-Aid take care of your home so you can enjoy the holiday festivities. Kool-Aid, keeping Tennessee cool, plumbing right, and always lights bright. So visit Kool-Aid.com. Yes, that's Kool-Aid.com.
Cover 2 with Blaine Bishop and Zach Lyons here on 104.5 The Zone, powered by all Four Seasons Garage Doors. We just had Coach Mack on. If you missed that, that'll be available wherever you get your 104.5 The Zone podcast, Spotify, Apple. It doesn't matter. It'll be there. And thanks to everybody in the F&M Bank chat on YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, Facebook Live, Zone TV over there as well. And if you want it, last call for phones, 615-737-1045. And Blaine, I kind of want to toss that red zone question to you because obviously he talked about desert and all that kind of stuff.
Scheme.
But what are you? I mean, I know that teams are getting a shorter a shorter field to work with against Tennessee Titans because of either special teams or turnovers and all that kind of stuff. So I understand that part, but. I mean, at the end of the day, what are you seeing scheme-wise or player-wise that is causing them to maybe give up more touchdowns than they should? Because, Coach Mack said it's all about finding that one play, and you got to find that one play, in that certain area of the field. So, is it just a lack of eye discipline? Is it just that some of the players that are injured that aren't there back yet and they're not doing it? It just seems like you get into the red zone and you're more than likely going to score a touchdown on this team.
I wish I did have the answers. What I can say is at least the last couple games it was eye discipline, definitely the Detroit game. And I think they're getting certain players who are younger in compromising positions. One of them was Brownlee, even in the motion. One thing is detail-oriented, that you have to learn when you're following motion, when you're a player, is you always stay one step behind them. You never try to beat them to the spot on the other side of the field in the motion. You try to stay one step behind. Here's the reason why. It's just like this I use this as my tactic as a tackler, is if he stops and changes direction, now you have a chance to recover, and then you are still one step behind going the opposite direction. Or if he stops and goes in the backfield, makes a whole big old U-turn. So I think that's what happens and then they've got Hooker into a matchup in a three-way man-to-man bunch formation. To me, there was some way you got to find a way to get out of it, or somebody has to lock up, and then that way you can't get picked. So they kind of identified they're going to go man-to-man, and this is what we're going to do. So I think they need to, figure out different scenarios of how to play those, and usually go over those in training camp. And that way now, if you don't go over it actually in practice, you kind of just talk through it at practice, because I'm sure they show the formation. Sometimes they don't show the formation. It's all new. So that's probably what's happened. I think also they have to have this mindset that when they run onto the football field after a sudden change, and they're in compromising 20 yards and in the red zone, that a win is if we hold them to a field goal. You must remind, our job is to hold them for a field goal. They go 3 and out. We won this drive. And even though they got points. So you got to look at it from a positive perspective, because all you can do is control when you're out there. So that's what you want to do. So I just think they got to look at it a little different. Offenses are so pass-centric now in the red zone, and you just got to be able to also play some form of zone there and, hope for the best. But I think that's then where our pass rush doesn't come into play, and not having consistent pass rush, which I thought was going to be a weakness, is kind of showing a little bit now, especially when you play the better teams. But, Key and Simmons have played well individually, but as a group, and that's what you need your front four games. The NFL is just like the SEC in that games are won in the trenches. In the NFL, just at a whole higher level. So they need to get a little bit better, and that's why I think they tried to say we're going to get bigger, stronger, and faster in the trenches based off the guys they drafted.
So let me ask you a question, and this is more of the whole defensive philosophy. I'm a little surprised. So I went and looked at the data on fantasy points data, and they track man zone coverage rates. And I'm a little surprised after week 5 through 7, it was 33% man, 25.7% man, and 47.8% man in week 8. These last 2 weeks where I feel like you're going up against wide receivers that aren't the quality of the wide receivers you've seen previously, that you drop down to 5.8% man versus New England and 13% man against the Los Angeles Chargers. Yeah, I was about to say Chicago. Los Angeles Chargers. I'm just a little surprised that it dipped down that low these last 2 weeks. I understand there's no L'Jarius Sneed, but he wasn't there for some of these other games. And these are wide receivers I feel, and maybe they're seeing something on film that I don't, that they should match up pretty well with.
Yeah. Well, when you're doing the red zone, are you doing 25 and in or 20?
No, this is the entire field. So this is
it's entire.
So yeah,
okay,
this is just the entire field.
Yeah, that's a little surprising for me. I thought we matched up well with our young guys. Now, sometimes it's about scheme and what you're facing, not at the actual matchup as a player.
Okay.
But that number is low to me. And you saw Murray got caught up in the watch.
Right.
I want to say Bronley left his zone area. And then he was supposed to have been back there, and Murray just got caught on the one. And, that's what everybody, Murray got beat for a touchdown, when in theory, he was just covering somebody and I'm going to run with this guy. He's wide open here. Why not? And so those are the things. Bronley, see, he has to have his first experiences and have discipline with his eyes and not want to react so fast. He has to go through some of these processes because, that's just the way it is when you're a rookie in this league, especially at corner. So, and it can devastate your team because you're the cornerback. So, I thought they'd be in
I thought that was a little surprising.
Even closer, just because those bigger receivers.
Yeah.
The big issue for me when you're a corner, the bigger receivers usually aren't as polished route runners, but they're going to give you issues for jump balls.
Yeah.
So I thought we matched up pretty good.
I was, especially against New England too, because obviously I feel the Chargers wide receivers are a little bit better than the Patriots, but neither of these units are the world beaters of some of these other teams you played man against. And
well, also because you're looking at the team. When I say scheme, is they run the football. You're also trying to add your corners as run defenders.
Okay.
See, so now all of a sudden it goes from 7 guys to 9 guys if you're playing zone. So sometimes it's based off of the scheme and system you're playing, not the actual players.
Okay.
I think that's what's happened. And I actually like zone versus younger quarterbacks. I know this week, Herbert's not a young quarterback at this point.
It's what we both wanted against Malik Willis.
Yeah. And they didn't. They got blitzed. They did a lot of blitzes. So I think he's kind of learned a little bit from that, too.
Okay.
At the same time, must not forget, both sides of the ball are new play callers. And I think they're filtering through what their talent is and what they like and don't like as play callers with the personnel that they have.
Yeah, it was kind of a jarring drop, when you look at everything. Because, like we said, the Green Bay game was 48% man, when we know that probably should have swung the other way, in all honesty. It'll be interesting because this next team that's coming in is the Minnesota Vikings, and we're talking about, I was talking about man versus zone, but now I'm going to switch gears to a little bit to blitzing. He only got blitzed one time last week against the Jacksonville Jaguars, Sam Darnold. One time they sent a blitz. Everything else was just four-man pressures. It worked for the most part. They didn't win, but he got 3 interceptions and 0 touchdowns. So, it will be interesting to see what is that maybe the way to take out Sam Darnold. But again, this team, it can't generate pressure with just four players, I feel like.
Not on a regular basis.
This is going to, and listen, now I will say this, the offensive line for Minnesota Vikings are a little suspect, just like Tennessee Titans. So there is opportunity that this defense can bounce back. It's just going to be very interesting. We'll get into more of this as we go on through the week. The college football playoff rankings, the second version will be out. We'll talk about that tomorrow. We'll talk more about the Minnesota game and how they fare up against Tennessee Titans. Jordan DeJaney will be tomorrow. So we got a loaded show tomorrow. Loaded show coming up next. 3HL's up next. This has been Cover 2 with Blaine Bishop and Zach Lyons. And in the meantime.
And in between time.
Peace.